and on the other side, we work a lot with enterprises directly. We built a truth engine, which basically allows to verify any data online through a bunch of zero knowledge tools. And we've been doing like the two things in parallel. But I think about me is less important than what we're going to talk about today. And basically, I have like a very we're supposed to talk about metrics and benchmark, and I have a very unpopular opinion on most of the metrics and benchmarks that have been going around in Web3, and that's something that it translates directly to the projects that we onboard at XION. So for me, when I'm selecting projects, I only care about traditional business metrics. I treat every Web3 project as a startup, as a tech startup, and I don't give any excuses because for me the technology has matured enough to a point that basically you guys are competing with traditional Web2 companies. So there's no reason for us to make a distinguish between Web3 and Web2 companies, especially when we talk about funding. The only difference, obviously, like is the tokenomics and the fact that the decentralization and so on. But especially on consumer applications, has been more than proven that people care less about decentralization than we wish. I think I would say that probably everyone here still has that utopia of a dream of the reason why blockchain was created in crypto, and that like a bit anarchist view of the world. Unfortunately, we care, but most people don't. And you know this because most of the people that you know probably have like an Instagram account. And if you go through like the terms and condition, it would like make everyone that believes in privacy turn on their graves. So the fact is that people don't really care. They just care about having like a good application or something that improves their life in some way, and it could be like from a real business perspective or just to have fun. And I think this is something that in Web3 we've sort of like skipped a bit. That is like, we're emerging technology. People really care about the technology and they want to try. And we've been there, but we've been around for like 10 plus years. And now we got to a point that's we're competing with everyone else. So having shitty UX or like having like the old, like you have to get a wallet and gas fees and all that absurdity for a traditional Web2 user is not going to cut it. So we really need to start bringing what stuff that we can do in Web3 that is not possible to do in Web2, and that's where we differentiate ourselves. But that means that all the criteria and all the metrics and benchmark need to be comparable and basically the same as in Web2. And right now, like this is quite interesting stats, but like 46% of the Series A in the US add some part of like Web3 or on-chain components. These means that it's not just pure on-chain or Web3. Like it's not. There's almost no separation anymore. Like almost half of the investments have some component of Web3. That means that you're competing with everyone. So there's no longer like that differentiation. Obviously, you still have like VCs and so on that are focused on Web3. Primarily because the way that they build the VC, the funding and the investment mechanisms go in hands in hand with the token and the easy liquidity exit versus like a traditional equity investment, which is obviously dependent on the next round or an eventual IPO. Obviously, that having a token changes a bit the dynamic there. And there's some funds and some family offices and so on that prefer that flexibility of being able to cash out sooner versus like a traditional Web2 investment. But one thing that has been changing is that is no longer an excuse for the metrics to not be as competitive as they are in Web2. And the metrics for top VCs are coming back to like the basics and being compared with like the Stripes and Notions of Vessel of this life. and you don't no longer have the excuse of like, oh yeah, but like this is riskier and then our numbers are not that good, but you can cash out in like 12 months or 24 months or whatever is the cliff and so on. And that was like a really good excuse like a few years ago, but now like the metrics have changed. And I think especially for you that most of you are like quite young companies and you're looking to raise, you need to take that in consideration because the conversations don't flow the same way as they did before. And I think this is like like a really important quote. We 100%, and I think like most of you have this in mind when you're building, and the reason why you chose to use this tech is to be open and inclusive. But we still have to go back to like traditional metrics because this is still a business. I assume like most of the time it is a business, and you're doing this because you love the project, but also because you want to make money. And I think that is something that people almost sometimes are afraid to say. And that is just, you're lying to yourself or you're lying to your investors if the goal of your company is not also to make money. Obviously it can be fun, it can be like you're solving a problem as something that you identify with, but it needs to be like more traditional, like focus on like, I'm solving this problem, and the reason why I'm solving this problem is because I care about it, but also I see a gap in a way for me to actually make money out of this. I'm gonna like go through like this sort of like traditional like core metrics and focus on a few things, which I feel that are a bit overlooked because of what I mentioned before. I'm not gonna try to like preach you or give you like a proper class like you were in university or anything like that, because first I don't feel that I have the legitimacy to do that. Like I've done my bachelor and master's and all that good stuff in entrepreneurship and finance, but I don't think that I don't want to be your teacher. This is more my opinion in the way that I see the projects that have come my way, and just to give you that part of my job. Like one of the things that I do the most with my projects is to make sure that they can raise and prepare them to get them in front of investors. So all of this that I'm going to tell you is a bit from feedback that I've been getting from those projects, and also the way that I take like I evaluate the projects that come my way. But like one thing that I always love this from Chris is that you can have the best tokenomics in the world, everything makes sense, but if the product is mediocre, it's going to be like just a failure. There's no way you're going to go around with the like the tokenomics will never compensate for the product, and the product and this is like always almost like a warning, is like the product and the token are not necessarily 100% correlated. Because like the market moves in weird ways. So you might have been very successful with the product, and the engagement and the revenue metrics and so on are doing great. But if that doesn't translate directly to the token, you basically won't have the token, the price impact on the token that you want. And this is something that is I think for me is like the trickiest part of Web3 versus a Web2 when you have a token, is that you almost have like two different products. You have your company and what you're building, and then you have the token, and that needs to be catered in completely different ways. Unfortunately, obviously, if you can connect the revenue and the margins from the token, from the NAV revenues that impact the token directly, and this could be with like the buybacks and burns or something like that, or redistribution of that revenue to the token holders, and treat the token almost like an equity and not just like a part of the ecosystem, then you can start having a bit of like this correlation between the two. But if you don't, like they will run by itself, and almost like the marketing that you do for your product is very different from the marketing that you do for your token, because you're talking to different audiences. your token holders are not necessarily your app users, especially on consumer applications, because the token holders might just be like, I'm bullish on what these guys are building. I'm not using their product, but I believe there's a lot of people who want to use the product, so I'm going to back them in a way. But if then the business grows and they don't feel the impact on the token, as in like there's no direct correlation with that to like a buyback of the token or like sharing that revenue with the token holders, then like it's just a belief that someone will pay more than what they pay for the token, and that's where like it really goes like is a complete separate route versus like an equity business and like an IPO or stock. And there's ways to mitigate that. That's basically what I'm saying. So like, I think this is where most crypto fail miserably, is that engagement and retention, like the way that we originally try to incentivize people to use products in Web3 has been with airdrops. Like, I'm going to pay people to come and use my product, and then they're going to love my product and they're going to stay. The issue is when you start giving rewards to people to do something, the moment that you stop giving those rewards, they will leave. Just because the way what you're activating on their brain, the dopamine hits that they have from that rewards is the first feeling that they have with your product. That means that the moment that that trigger is not there, they will be like, they start looking at the problems and the shortcomings of your product. And that's why games always have used the free to play, getting the engagement, getting the person hooked, and then like start giving them potentially monetary rewards with tournaments and so on. But at that point, the person is already hooked, and that's why like the retention on like mobile games, it's super high at the beginning, and then once you start introducing like the paying aspects, you start getting a drop off. But on the bright side is because you're able to create that addiction into the game, like a good addiction. This might sound weird, but like you get them like engaged enough that they want to keep on going. But you need to be able to do that transition, and that's where you see like the opposite on the average of like Web3 products, is that even when they are able to get that day one retention because they're pumping up like a lot of like rewards like at the beginning, then the drop off is huge. Obviously, like on the top top Web3 projects, the product is amazing. You're doing stuff that you've never been able to do before. So like the engagement is there, and you're battling with like a top mobile game, which is already pretty decent, especially because we don't have that many users in Web3. The fact that we can like compete at that top projects with top mobile games, that's amazing. But when we start to fall very, very, very short is when we start to try to go into the SaaS business, which let's be honest, that's where you make the most amount of money. Like obviously B2C is very interesting and it's challenging and it's fun, and you have like consumer on the other side. But if we're talking about like real like big businesses, is normally B2B or B2B2C. And that's where like Web3 has been hasn't been able to do such a good job, just because of the way that we motivate people to use the products. And we've optimized to the user and trying to get that like utopia and absurdity of like, oh, we're going to onboard the next billion users. And we've been saying that for the past 10 years, but we've been trying to incentivize people in like, oh, I pay you to use this shitty app. It looks terrible. And this shitty game, it looks terrible, but I'll give you money. And people are like, yeah, if you give me money, I will endure this horrible experience. But the moment you stop giving them money, they'll be like, oh my God, like I'm never going to use this again. Versus focusing on the product, making sure that the product is something that people want to use. And then once they're engaged, you can start rewarding them. And that's how you create a flywheel effect to get them to come back. And you need to make sure that that is the way to go, and that you have like a sound product, and then you can start playing with the token and rewards, and that loop comes after. But if you do the other way around, you're gonna go end up on like this average Web3, which is like less than 3% of the retention, and you burn through cash, and then your investors like, what the hell is happening? And then when you start, people start seeing the numbers, you're gonna get like it will just go snowball effect onto the other side. And this now goes to the most like feared, I believe, feared conversation of Web3 projects, which is revenue. Because there's a lot of projects that their revenue is, oh, my token is going to go up because my people are going to like my product and they're going to buy the token, and that's it. And then you like pause and look at the person that is telling you that, and you're like, how the fuck do you think that this is a business model? Businesses need revenue, and they need margins, like cross margins. So you have costs, you have revenue, and that needs to be agreed. I'm not saying that on the first day you need to be making profits, but you need to have like a clear path to profitability. Because if you don't, like, you're gonna die. Like, if the project is gonna die. It doesn't really. No one cares if it's the most beautiful game or most beautiful app. If it doesn't have the right fundamentals and economics, it will die. Investors, like, we're not in a crazy bull market, so investors won't just pour money because they're making a bunch of money on other projects and just, oh, let's see if it works. That is gone. Like, right now we're back to like reality and fundamentals. Is like, you need real revenue, and real revenue is the only thing that pays the bills. If you don't pay the bills, your company dies. Having a token and like that sense of fast liquidity and oh, I have a bunch of tokens, they're worth this much, I can sell it and like keep going with the business. But every time you sell, there's sell pressure on the token, so what you have, it just goes down as you sell, and you have less in your pocket, and the market doesn't react well to it. So you really need to get this revenue sorted, and not like, again, like token treasury selling that is not revenue at all. And you also need to make sure like the gross margins make sense. Like, it's not like having like a 5-10% gross margin that you're going to be able to do it, because expenses are, you have expected expenses, and then you have when shit hits the fan, and that is will happen more often than not, unfortunately. And you'll have like out of the blue expenses, so you need to be prepared for that, and that's how a business should work. And you will see more and more, like when you have conversations with VCs and angels and so on, they will ask you like, what's your revenue? What are your costs? Like, when do you think you're gonna be able to like start getting close to profitability? Because once you start getting close to profitability, you will be able to get more funds, and probably like delay the profitability because you're investing in growing more the business. But there needs to be a path to go there. There needs to be like a clear way for you to achieve, and not just burning cash throughout the entire process. And I don't know if you've like, I'm not gonna go into like a lot of details explaining like this, all like magic numbers, and there's a couple other things that I'm going to go through, because like you can just Google it, and I didn't create this metric, so there will be like a bunch of better videos explaining this. So I'm going to go very, very, very simple on this. But basically, one of the key metrics from traditional investment, from traditional VCs and traditional startups, is this magic number, which basically means how much dollars is costing you to grow. Like, and it's a very, very simple math. And most of the VCs have like a very basic threshold on like, yeah, I don't touch anything that is below this 0.75, because it means that you're not even getting a 1-to-1 on the expenses for you to grow. That means that eventually you won't have enough cash to keep on growing, and this is something that you always need to optimize for. And this goes back to what we were talking about, retention, and all of like this engagement with users and new users, and getting them onboarded, and making sure that they stay, so that you can keep on making revenue while you're obviously like spending money to grow the business. And this is pretty much like a one-to-one like metric that every single VC will know about. If you go into a conversation and you have this in your mind, they will either they'll ask you, or if you introduce this, they will know that you're taking this seriously, and you're making sure that you're talking that language, and it's a bit like almost like politeness to make sure that you address stuff that they have on their like almost like question list to ensure that you are on the right path. But like I really like you should really take a look at this and how like other businesses have optimized for this magic number. Is really useful. This is same thing, but more like on the user itself. So you need to have a payback from the user. So the money that you're spending on growth, that means spending on both like customers, and it could be like enterprises, could be users, like all of this needs to pay back eventually over time. And there's like clear metrics on how fast you need to do it. So not only you need to be able to make that dollar worth their dollar worth or even more when you're pushing for growth, but you need to make sure that it's in a timely manner. You're gonna go like you'll be playing around on runways most of your startup life, especially at the beginning. So the faster you're able to get that money back, the faster you can reinvest it, and the faster you can grow. If it starts to delay too much, or if you're getting stagnating somewhere, this is going to hurt you like hell. Like there's no way you will be able to recoup those funds. And when you start going above 8 months, that means that cycle is off. And especially for us in crypto, we do have the cycles way more evident than in the real world, if you will, like on like equity and more traditional startups. They're allowed to have longer cycles because it's traditionally longer periods for the funds to be like, oh, we're in a bull run, we're in bear market. It just takes longer for us. This is way faster. You might be like, and this year has been a wild roller coaster. You might be like full on like, oh, we're in a bull run. Oh, fuck, we're in a bear market, and all of that means that you need to optimize to make this like payback super short, so that you don't lose the wave of like the bull, or you don't get too dragged down on a bear. So like this, the payback is ultra important. And this one is, again, going back to like runway. Runway is your worst enemy and your biggest motivator, if you want. It's going to be like the angel and the devil side of things, because it will make you be disciplined and make sure that you are on your toes and you're pushing your ass off to make sure that you're able to survive. But this is also how you lose a company. So all the points that I've mentioned before, it all comes down to this: you'll have money that you're burning, and you have revenue, and that's all that matters for you to be able to keep on paying your employees, keep on paying your servers, keep on paying your lawyers, keep on paying everything that you have running. Because the moment like you run out of cash, there's no miracles. Like people. Your best friends and your best investors and all that, the people that were praising your project, the moment that you're out of cash, they give zero fucks. They are not that they're obviously they support you, but the moment that you cannot serve the purpose, they will have to cut their losses as well. So this is probably, I would say, the most important metric, and this needs to be 100% looked at as a traditional company. Like we've seen in crypto a lot of companies that are like 10x burning, like absolute crazy amount of money, like being like burned for absolute no reason, just because oh, the token will go up. Like, this is just bear market, is fine. And then like, oh shit, we cannot do anything. And then you cut everything. And then you go from, oh, I'm going to throw a like $500,000 party, and then I'm not even going to be able to pay my servers the next day. And this is not sustainable. And this is one of the reasons why a lot of investors outside of Web3 are ultra afraid of investing in Web3, because they cannot understand the volatility, and they cannot understand like the emotions that go through everything went down 40% today. Oh, everything went up to 100%. I think I would say probably all of you here, you've had days that you're like, okay, this is a bad day. It's red as hell. And we're talking about like 70% down, 80% down. If you look at Web2, like traditional investors, if their investment, their equity is going down 10%, they're like, stop the stock market. Like, it's like the worst day ever on the stock market. So we do have like a different tolerance for those big greens and big reds, but that is not sustainable long term. You need to be able to like sustain a bit better, like at least on the revenue and burn. The token, like obviously you cannot control it that much, but on the revenue and burn, you need to look at this as more like almost like a grocery store. Like you have the stuff that you buy, the stuff that you sell, very, very traditional. You have potatoes, you sell potatoes, and you're not going to buy 10 times more potatoes if you actually don't have the demand for it. And I think people forget about this a bit when you're in a bull run, and then they get a refresher when they get into a bear market. But traditionally, is a bit too late. The tough decisions should be done on the bull one, so that when you're on the bear, you're just chill and building and not doing anything crazy or trying to compensate when you really can't. So there's like I know that this is not part of my metrics and benchmark, but since we were like going through the flow, I thought it was might as well just make sure that we go through this. This is like the fundraiser reality check for any Web2 project, with the difference like we have tokenomics here that you normally don't have in Web2. But I think the most important thing right now is that you should focus in making sure that the way that you look at the market and based on Web3, there's infinite amount of possibilities for you to not have to have like the wallets, the gas fees, like you don't need it anymore, and you don't need to go after Web3 users. And one thing that I tell all of my projects is that Web3 users are probably the hardest users, if not to some extent the worst users you'll have, because their motivation is completely disaligned with you. They want to use you to make money. Most of them don't care about your product. They're leveraging and optimizing to make profit versus utility, and that is the traditional user in Web2. Most of the users' products, because that product brings something to them, some upside, but not necessarily a financial. I think really like the biggest evidence of this is gaming. We decided to go with like play to earn and all that good old bullshit that didn't work at all, because you're incentivizing the wrong triggers on players, and they're not players anymore. They're doing arbitrage with what you have in game, and that's where you lose, and that's why you've seen like so many games with loads of potential that got completely destroyed because of it. And this goes with games, goes with consumer applications, and so on. Back to focus on what a user wants, not a Web3 user, because a Web3 user, when they see the users there and they might be able to get some arbitrage and get some money out of it, they will get involved. Don't worry about that. If there's a way for them to make money, they will, but they won't stick around if they're not making money. And you need people to stick around for engagement and retention. And another part that is super important on the tokenomics, the traditional like tokenomics, like, oh, my token will go up because, and that's it. That is no longer enough. You need to start being more creative with the way that the tokenomics interact with the revenue and what your business is doing. And I think like at the beginning and a few years back when most of like the regulation was against tokens to be equity or be something that is related with the business. So we all distance ourselves like, oh, this is just a utility token. No, there's nothing to do with the company. Although like everyone had the treasuries there and we're using that for the operations and so on, and their revenue was tied to that token going up. Nowadays, because we are a bit less scrutinized on the way that the token and the business works, you should really start considering this idea of having buybacks and burns, like having like a real impact of your revenue and as you grow to the token holders. So having like obviously utility to the token to be used in app or in game or whatever you're doing, but don't forget that token for some people and for you included, it is your equity. So if the team holds bags of tokens, and the way for you to guarantee that the token has a steady upward trend is if the business is obviously performing well and that business impacts directly the token. And there's a bunch of different things that you can do, but this is something that you should definitely take in consideration. And this is something that I can guarantee you that most of the investors right now will ask about it is how does your token go up? How does like what's the trajectory? And what is the rationale for this to go up? Why would I invest now? Will I get more money at the end? Because again, VCs, angel investors, even like most of Web3 people that buy your token, they are buying it to make money. It's not because they really like you and you're like and you're their buddies. They might be as well, but like they want to make money, and that's the whole driver here, and you need to optimize for that. Finally, like this, I think I've mentioned pretty much all of this right now before, but like again, focus on like traditional metrics, all the growth and tokenomics and the fundraising needs to be optimized for your business, and it needs to make sense. There's no longer like no one will one excuse like a token that has no reason to exist, or like a path to be useful for the users. And you need to remember that your company, this is still your company. This is might be your baby or not, or you might be doing it just for make money. But it still needs to be, and it still needs to function as a business. And at the end of the day, revenue pay for you and your employees, and keeps the boat afloat. And that's the most important thing at the end of the day. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I know it's a bit of a rant about like how crypto and a few of the things that have been done in the past are not it didn't work well. Not saying that I know I know better. I just have like a very straight approach to this, and I've been around enough to see like where a lot of the downfall has been, and also on my side because I do deal with projects every day. I'm not kidding. Like if I have any conversation with a project that's the tokenomics is like, oh, the token will go up, I will like say farewell on the spot. And if there's no conversation or revenue on the first 5 minutes of the conversation, it's a no-go for me as well. So not saying that I'm like all of the other VCs, and maybe there's more to it. But on a final note, right now, as the market is weird as hell, and it's not like, and people are not just throwing money at stuff. Remember, like the fundamentals, and the most important thing is like you as a team, and the reason why you're building the product is your biggest it's your biggest asset more than anything else, because tech, especially with AI and so on, like it's easy to copy, but you will be able to do more if you have like a really good story and a really way to get revenues and a good tokenomics that merge the two together. And now feel free to ask questions.
Yes, I have a question, please.
Go for it.
I'm from Nudix team. We are a platform for uncensored content. Well, our main niche at the beginning is adult content. So that's basically we have a Web2 business model. I mean, the platform for games, but we went into crypto because in traditional finance, adult payments are often blocked, and also for fundraising and for the crowd investing model that we plan in the future to be like kind of Kickstarter. So my question is, because we debate that much, and what you were talking about is very close to our heart, because we also believe in a sustainable business model first, and many Web3 projects lack in that regard. What we want to decide is how to better implement our token into the platform, because our current vision is that it would serve so like in platform currency for buying games, for trading in-game items, and so on. So for user, it would be very convenient. They can pay in any currency, but internally it would be converted into our token, and it would be paid out to developers and so on. But we've received some feedback that it's a bit complicated from the technical side, and that maybe we should consider USDT payments. But we still believe that it would it would be a very understandable reason why token would go up, because more people would use the platform, they would convert more, and so on. And also it would help us to from a security point, because it's clear that regulation comes that USDT will be considered, I mean, or other stablecoin would be considered as basically fiat money in terms of regulation, and the payments can be blocked. So to be fully resistant for that, we also want to implement our token. What's your opinion in that regard?
So another unpopular opinion. I think most projects don't need their own token, but I understand where you're coming from. However, like especially for example, we'll be launching like on XION, like a OnlyFans equivalent, and we do like all the payments we have our own bearing stablecoin and so on. So there's a bunch of things that you can play around with that on revenue. Basically, when you pay the content creator, if they hold the funds, they'll get yield, and you'll get yield as well. So there's a few other revenue streams that you can do without the need to have your token. And to be honest, like when you're paying for content or for games, it's not great that you go there and cost like $10, and then the token goes crazy up, and the same thing the next day costs 20, or the day after it costs 5. And that's the issue with the volatility of a token, is that you either compensate for that, so you put like a dollar amount, and then the token amount fluctuates, but it still feels a bit weird for the user that holds a token, that like now this cost me like 2x a token or half the tokens. And if you're going after Web2 users, it's going to be a very hard sell for them to be able to understand this. You already have like a massive drop off when it's to pay, and if you create an additional barrier that is a token that is volatile, and you need to buy that token to then have access to that content, it creates a bit of friction that is a bit useless. However, the token can have a complete different use on the platform. You can have like different pricing. So for example, a discount pricing, if they're using your token, you can have like a rewards when you buy some content or you play a game, you can get some rewards on your token that allow you to unlock specific features or exclusive content. So I think just the token as a means of payment, especially when you're targeting more than just Web3 users. And even if you're targeting Web3 users, like they would prefer to pay with like their traditional tokens than having to buy a new token and getting like and swap it to a token that they don't necessarily know. They don't want to know more tokenomics. So I think I'm team the payment for services and games and so on should have like an option that you pay in a stable so that you can target Web2 users and traditional users that don't want to know about the token. But there should always be, if you want to have a token, there should be like a loyalty program or like rewards around that token, and then obviously giving advantages to use that token on pretty much everything on the platform. And that way, you also allow you to have like a treasury that is a bit more flexible. So you'll have hard cash coming from those payments in stables, which you can easily convert to fiat and pay for your expenses of services that don't accept crypto yet, because there will definitely be some. And then you can also pay your contractors, your employees in different ways. And that combination of like stables and your own token works really well because you just get the right mix.
Yes, a small clarification. Yes, if I mean, even if we were to implement the token as the payment method, the prices would be fixed in US dollars because it's the usual for all gaming platforms, like Web2 gaming platforms, I mean. And there would be option to pay like in any cryptocurrency, so there would be like some payment gate, so with minimum user friction. Maybe we would even implement credit card payment via some partner or that. So in terms of user friction, yes, we would of course minimize, but I mean it's just in terms of like internal use. So it would be all happening, especially if it's like a Web2 user who just wants to buy a game and play it and wants to know nothing about crypto, like he wouldn't even know that there is a token. It's just mostly question about the internal use, because, well, it's the question that potential investors ask, because they also want so because one of the key questions they ask is that why do you need a token, and we also need to answer that from the one side, and from the other side, yes, it would complicate things a bit. So I guess that's the trade-off.
Yeah, and by the way, if you need any help on that, like we've been able to bypass a lot of the issues with payment processing for adults and adult gaming and stuff. Just send me a message and I'll connect you with the folks that are taking care of that.
Yeah, thank you. That would be very helpful.
No worries. I'm not looking at the hands. Just start speaking. This is we all came to crypto for the energy of it. So just talk.
Yeah, hello. My name is Sebastian from Lattice. Right. So one thing you mentioned is that in Web2, people are fine with paying because they're getting a service that they find valuable, right? And if we look at our amount of subscriptions, we know that there is an acceptance of that model. So in Web3, what things have you found that have that success? What projects, what models that have managed to get that retention and that willingness from a user to pay from a service that is valuable?
To be honest, like the best Web3 projects that I've seen, without mentioning like the blurs, like all the NFT marketplaces were in 2021 and all that, it's been projects that have been able to crack into Web2. Have been able to bring a service that was not possible to do before, and I've seen a bunch with like the provenance on chain of valuable items, making sure that things are coming from the right place, verifications with like zk-TLS, with zk email, like verifying that something is real or someone has done something, and get that like basically using blockchain and crypto in a way for for stuff that was not possible to do in Web 2. That's been like probably the most important parts. And going like back to the basics of traditional like payment processing and cross-border payments, it's still like a very, very good solid use case, but needs to apply to something that requires that sort of payments and processing. I think a lot of projects have been, like just shove a bit of AI, shove a bit of crypto into this, and the project will work. And it needs to be the opposite. I think most of the even the examples that I gave as like the best in class, like Versal, Stripe, and so on, they started to solve a very simple problem. And then they expanded. Obviously, like nowadays we look at them as like they're massive beasts, but they started with like one specific problem, like either a payment processing or like a way for people to demonstrate what they're building and doing like quick demos. And that is something that is always going to be the most important. Is like you need to find a niche in something that you are solving for. Normally is because you were in the industry. Like most of the projects that I've seen that are very successful is they were from the industry, not necessarily from Web3. And actually that's probably like what I've seen the most. And again, I'm like, most of the projects that I look into are consumer applications and consumer products, but most of them come from the industry with like quite a few years of experience, and they see a gap, and they see that the industry is not like closing that gap because they don't have the tools for it, and then they use crypto tools or cryptographic tools or blockchain to solve that problem in ways that was not possible to do before, and that is when you start bringing value to those users, and that's when they start using. And again, like for example, there's a bunch of games, like game studios from Web3 that started with the old play to earn, and you've seen a lot of them starting to move into like free to play with some freemium ads, like a bit going back to basics, because that's how you make revenue. And on platforms like the finance platforms, I think they've been very, very successful with one issue. And for me, that's been like the biggest barrier for a lot of like applications, super applications that have like all of like the perks of having like a centralized financial ecosystem that you can leverage a lot of like the Web3 tools, is that they're not made for the everyday Joe. That means that if you don't know enough about crypto and you like start getting like asked if you want to do a vault or perpetuals or like something that is quite complex, and you're focusing on like financial literate people, you will have to fight against all the other people that are going after that niche, versus applications that I've seen with more like easy payments to friends, family, paying rent, paying bills, that are using crypto rails and stablecoin payments to process that, and leveraging yield of those stablecoins to make sure that there's an extra revenue stream. So from my side, the ones that I've seen more successful at retention and growth are the simpler projects that are just going the fundamentals of, there's a gap, I can improve this or close this gap with some cryptographic solution or a blockchain solution, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, so following on that, we are at the centralized storage network, and obviously those already exist, right? That is Arweave and IPFS, etc. But they didn't get any mainstream use, right? After the NFT boom collapsed, they are sort of languishing. So what do you think has been the problem with that sector of the industry? So
you're competing with like massive players in the Web2 space, right? And this has been like all the, and I opened with this at the beginning, is like we over-indexed how much people actually care about decentralization. So if a product is better because it's decentralized, and that's the entire like unique selling point, like that is not a unique, it is a unique selling point from a philosophical perspective, but the user doesn't care. you need to be like offering something that is actually valuable for them, and that goes into the way that you position itself. It is more secure. Like you need to focus on the advantages of having something decentralized, and not just say, oh, this is decentralized, you should use it because it's decentralized. No one gives a royal fuck. Like I'll be honest, I like again, like most of us probably use most of 90% of our day you're using centralized platforms, and you're using it because it makes your life easier, and it helps you. And all the talk of decentralization is a bit like it is like in ideology, it's 100% makes sense, and you want that, but the centralization doesn't affect you that much on the day-to-day life to justify you changing to a decentralized system. So you need to focus on what can you do that is not possible with a centralized system. What advantages do you have? And I think that's where like we failed miserably as an industry. We focused on like this philosophical view of like, oh, this is decentralized. No one can control us. No one can like control what you have. But like what people really care is like, oh, this is more secure and have additional features, and I can do more stuff, and it's either cheaper or better. That's what they're gonna take. So I think that's pretty much the reason why it didn't work with most of the projects. And again, I'm not saying that it won't, and that people won't go back and like, oh, I don't want to have like all my information being stored by someone. But then again, everyone is going to like care about that, and then everyone is using ChatGPT and all the other ones where you put all of your life information with a term and condition that they can use that information that you've been putting, and you're totally fine with that, just to save 5 minutes of your day to build like an email. Right, so like there are people in companies sharing sensitive information with the ChatGPT of this life, just because they want to spend 2 minutes less writing an email. And that means that people don't care about decentralization, and they don't care about privacy. So if that is your unique selling point, it's going to be a very hard sell.
Thank you.
Don't raise your hand, just talk. This is...
Hey, hello. Yeah.
Hey.
We are come from Orion, so we are also making the Web3 card game, and we are really agree your point about the metric side. But we also has one question want to like asking about this topic because we are also like a traditional games studio, so we are all know about like how the business model and work in the traditional gaming. And my question is that like the traditional games use the ARPU, the average paid by pay users, and as their like the strongest metric to like evaluate the how games to earn money. But if VCs in the Web3 they are focused only funds on games that are already live and showing strong the traditional data. How does like a pre-launch startup like secure initial fundings? It seems like a classic like a chicken and egg problem, because like if we can like make a game without until we already launch to get these metrics, I think there's most of the startup they no need. They will need like a VC funds first and to complete the project. So this is a little bit conflict point in my view. So like have any ideas?
100%. I think like it's always going to be a chicken and the egg situation with especially with games, because like the market is super hard. And normally what and I said this at the beginning, I think like the biggest asset that most of you have is the reason why you're doing it, and and why you like, and basically the why you're actually doing the game and why you think that game is better than another one out there. Obviously, metrics is always going to be like the most important thing, and that's why like I do believe, especially for games, that the way that most of the most successful mobile games that I've won about, which was like it starts as a free to play, and then you start like getting the engagement, you start creating some tournaments, and then you create like the financial aspect of it, and you start getting those loops of creating revenue. And for me, and especially because of like all the restrictions that you have with Apple to get like tokens directly, even NFTs directly on the games, one of the things that you can do is for the token to be more like an ecosystem and almost like an equity token, where people will spend their hard like cash on the app, and then what you're doing is you're using the like a buyback and burn mechanism of your tokens using the revenue that you have from the game. And then you can do stuff outside of the game with people that want to be more immersed with the game, like having NFTs outside of the game that can be imported to the game, or having like some extra features that you can buy outside of the game and import to the game, instead of like having everything like that is in-app purchase. Obviously, you're going to have like quite a bit of a drop-off. So that's why in-app purchases should use like traditional payment methods, but allowing people to go to, for example, a dashboard or like an outside of the app sort of like landing page where you can do more stuff and having like an additional layer to the game. I think that's a way for you to be able to do that first step and improve that you have the traction, and then introduce those additional features. But again, going, especially when you go to the investors, making sure that there's a correlation with the revenue that the game is doing with like the traditional Web2, and how that impacts directly the token and like the potential like digital assets that you have. And that is like a combination that is, I don't have like a perfect recipe for this, but this is something that, at least from our side, we've seen like investors being like, okay, this is interesting. So like there's an actual impact of the revenue on the token price, because you will be buying back and burning the token. That means that there will be less supply, so there will be a pressure for the token to cure and value. It's obviously not like granted, because the market is still free, and they can just people will keep on trading the token, but at least there's a reason for why the token would go up, instead of like having like more and more tokens being minted and no reason for the token to go up and always like only a downtrend. So on games, I think there's definitely like and I think in the future there will be like a closer incorporation of like at least stablecoins into payment gateways on like apps, and the possibility of having NFTs directly embedded into those apps is not there yet, but you can play around with stuff around it. So one thing that we have like a big project that we're going to launch, like a Mortal Kombat style game, where like a AAA game, Unreal Engine 5, and so on. Is a desktop game. And the way that we've been going about this is you have like the game, the front end of the game, and you have the game server, and that game server is what talks to the chain. But that means that you don't need to have like that direct integration of like everything blockchain related to the game. You just need to be able to log into your account, and that's something that's on most apps you're able to do, especially like on our example in particular, we don't have a wallet, so you don't have the hops to a wallet, so you can do everything in app. And then if you purchase something that is on your account, that account is going to unlock what is available on the server, and that allows you to show on the game. So you're not like doing the crypto transactions and everything on the front end on the App Store, or like on your iPhone or whatever. You're doing outside of it, but you make it visible on the app, and that is totally fine so far with applications. So I think you just need to be a bit more creative on how the two worlds merge or the two worlds work, because having keeping on trying to do like this half-assed mobile games that are like browser games when 90% of the people are on their mobile, it's just not going to cut it, because there comes like a studio that is pure Web 2 and does like a very addictive hook of a game. They will win every single time. So that would be my advice, is go and be a game studio and use the token to be like the token of the ecosystem. Have parts that are in-app, that are very, very traditional, focused on Web 2 users, and then the power users, the ones that want to have more of your project and want to use crypto and have exposure to the token, also having an option for that, and that being done outside of the app for now. And once you're able to integrate both in one place, you'll go for it.
Yeah, thank you. This is a good advice. And yeah, we indeed want to integrate the Web 2 gamer and the Web 3 player community together, but I think they are belong to different motivation communities. So yeah, we need to separate them, and then to has different business models. So I think the Web 3 and Web 2 we should consider about use different economic format and try to integrate them together. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Hello, hi, Zia, how are you? This is Ahmed from the Digital Hearts. We are a game, we are action adventure game, like It Takes Two, if you have played that before. It's like a cooperative game where people join together, explore, do puzzles together, and they actually cannot finish the level unless they work together. And the game is completely emotional in nature, and actually it's been built from ground up to be family friendly. So the entire game is built to be anti-violent, anti-nudity, and anti-gambling. It's designed this way. My question is a second question. I need actually your viewpoint on two different points I have right now. The first one is the switch rate, like the high switch rate that we have into the Web3 space that allows people to switch easily between different, similar platforms, because it's easy to do so. This is what happened in 2021, 50 or 100 or 1,000 platforms, similar platforms, launch at the same time, and everyone knows that they can literally switch from one to the second. So let's say they made the NFT today, they sell it, and buy the next NFT from the other project, and they kill the first project. So the cycle, right? So I wanted to know within such space, okay, how we can balance, our go-to market, the action plans, all of that, into an environment like this. Like, how can we grow while an environment actually it's being killed by the consumer themselves from one side, okay, and of course by the developer from the other side due to different other factors, right? Like running or not delivering properly or team conflict, so many things happen. So yeah, I'd like to get your view regarding balancing between those two things, And the second point that I want to mention is about the NFT concept itself. Okay, so while we know that the NFT is providing us with real-time value that the Web2 was not able to do so, like every game that we played before, if we owned completely by the developers, right? Even the assets that they're gonna release now, even if it's not completely, like let's say it's not like the standard, not completely decentralized, still it gives the option to people to own their NFT and sell it and trade it and hold it in the wallet, right? In secondary market. So this thing was not available before, okay? So, however, still the Web2, let's say core gamers, are not interested in having such opportunity, okay? So what's your view on this as well? So this is 2 points, sorry.
No. Okay. So we're gonna start with the first one. Again, has to be fun. Everything else is an add-on. Like there's no way, and Web3 like make people believe that because you're just paying people to play the games, in giving them real money. And if you go and see like the very successful games, Axie Infinity and so on, the people that are playing the game was because they were able to pay their bills, and that's it, and go and pay groceries with their job, which was playing the game. And that's the only reason why it was so successful, was people were able to improve their life by playing the game. But it's like a pyramid scheme. There's no way that a game can keep on paying their players to play the game, and there was no loop of like of success, because you could pay to grow and so on. And I think that's where it became not fun anymore. Was when you're like, you feel like everyone that is playing the game is optimizing and farming and finding bugs to be able to make money and cash out, and not to really play the game and go up and do like cool stuff with other players. And that's the opposite that you have on, like, let's call it like example of Call of Duty. People pay for the season passes, the skins, to go and play with their friends. And they're doing as going out for a drink with their friends instead of going out for drinks with their friends. They might be like close by or like across the world, and they're just have like a date set to go and play with their friends. And that is just it's a human connection, obviously online, but it's still a human connection that they're going for, and that's why they're super successful, and that's why people are willing to pay to like for vanity, to go with a cool new gear and so on. And on that note, to reply to your second question, why people don't care about owning the assets or like NFTs for the sake of having NFTs, why a skin as an NFT that you can sell on secondary is not that relevant? Because people did the person, when they bought that skin, was not because they wanted to resell it. They bought it because they wanted to use it. And that's where like Web3 went extremely wrong, because people were optimizing for was, I'm going to buy this because someone will pay more for this, not because they wanted to use it. So like the entire vanity and reason like why you would go in the game and show your gear and your stuff, it was not there. So the motivation for other people to do the same is again not there. The project that were very successful was when they did like a one-on-one NFT that you need to like do some quest or win something, and then you get that one-on-one. And most of the people, and that's when you know that the game is successful, the people that won that one-on-one, they don't sell it. They don't want to sell it. It's like, this is my identity. This is what I got. And that's the only way that this NFTs and the reason why people would then like comes with a bunch of money, and I was like, I don't care, like I can win this game, but I have enough money to get that skin and show off. But if people are just buying to be able to sell it more expensive after, then you go back to like the play to earn situation. People don't really care about the game; they just care about making money. So that is not a game anymore. It's just finance. And that was the downfall for me of most of like Web3 games, is that the people that were having fun stopped having fun because there were a lot of people in the game that were just playing the game for financial purposes, and that kills the fun of the game. So fundamentals, special for games, it needs to be fun, period. And then you can reward the people that are having the most fun. And then you can allow people that have money and they're not as skillful to be able to access some exclusive stuff. And that is a loop that has worked since the dawn of time and will keep on working. Like the psychology of people and the way that people interact with games and rewards and with vanity and showing off, it has not changed. And what you have in Web3 players, they're not gamers, they're not players, they're financially motivated, they just want to pay their bills, and they're just doing it they're optimizing to make quick cash. and that is not what you want. And those are not the players that make money. They make you money and make your business successful.
Thank you very much. It's really informative. Thanks a lot.
I guess if everyone's done, I won't have a chance to. I'll just take a second to introduce myself. I'm Sol. I started as an indie dev, as an indie game dev, and then professionally I got into game dev, outsource, and kind of focused on design. And yeah, man, I was really geeked out on the tokenomic stuff early on with crypto, kind of unlocking a little bit more in terms of governance and decentralized organizations and what that could kind of mean. But in this context of like what I thought was a revolution, potentially GameFi, was kind of like the development cycle, especially for like indies, for modding, because this is like, to me, an opportunity of like infinite value generation, something we know exists, something we have a difficult time to tap into in like the previous system, and kind of obvious, but I think like with most good economies, I think ecosystems make sense. A lot of things you said really resonate with me, so I wanted to hopefully see if I can maybe get a chance to speak with you later. So there's an opportunity to do that. And yeah, I think like my dilemma, very similar to Kaimeen, was in this sense of like the chicken and the egg problem, and especially with maybe it's a little bit easier now to sit down and talk to people, but it was much harder to get kind of an opportunity to get more than superficial. And I think like good tokenomics require context and depth, and sometimes difficult to explain that. In our case, we got like 3 layers actually. On one side, we've got the token layer, it's like the Web3 buyer token, and we try to do something like the revenue, and it's like IP, stake ownership, so all future licensing yields, which to us makes sense. And then on the other end, we've got like all the resources that we've used so far. We create our open source pool for other devs, and we've got this dev layer where we attract other developers, and we might have like kind of like specific metrics for that, which are impressive kind of in their own right, but not really at a large scale. You know, like when we say we've got like 50 odd devs, we actually are 60 builders, and it's like 8 teams or something, but it's like still single digits and stuff. But yeah, anyway, and then ultimately, what we really want to do is we need games, and we're ultimately trying for that, but we're kind of like in very early stages of anything. But I guess trying to portray this idea of like the modding community and the sense of like, you know, the first 10 games might not be great, but I guess we've not had much luck getting kind of any funding or support, and I'm not sure, probably a lot of things working against us. But yeah, anyway, I thought a lot of things resonated, and maybe I can take this just to say like, hi properly, and maybe I'll reach out.
Please reach out. And again, like I think on the downfall, like the issue with this industry as a whole was there was people that were very opportunistic, and they managed to capture the inefficiencies of this industry as in the way that like the click to earn and everything worked. People that really optimized for that, and a bit like how we also got a bit screwed with like the rest of the world in the Web2 world because of so many scams and so many rugs and so on, and we got an awful reputation, and that hurt like the real builders as a whole. And and we can cry about it as much as we want, but it's not going to change. And I always I tell this to everyone, which obviously one more unpopular opinion. For me, 95% of the people in crypto building in crypto are absolute scammers and absolute dog shit developers, and they shouldn't be here. And then you have 5% that are amazing. Issue from those 5%, 2% of those are filthy rich already. They were on the perfect timing, really good developers, great teams, and they don't need to work anymore. So the motivation for them to work is lower. And then you have 3% that are the people that are actually building stuff, and they need to offset all the other 95% of shit that there is in this industry. Because it's so easy, like when you don't have barriers to entry, and anyone can AI generate a beautiful landing page and a beautiful bullshit tokenomics and a beautiful bullshit everything, you're fighting against that. So you actively have people that are like maybe better at you at bullshitting, which like it's still a skill, and they manage to capture some of that value, and then people hate it, and they will never want to touch it again. And that's why, like, especially for games, I really believe that you need to go back to the basics, and I think I love like the indie community, and I feel like the whole concept of DAOs, if it was done correctly, it would be perfect for the indie community, because you would have a part of like this game studio, and the token will be the representation of that. But because when DAOs sort of popped up, the token couldn't be like an equity token, couldn't be associated with revenue. So we had to like sort of rebuild, and the idea of a DAO. I don't think any DAO is a real DAO, because we optimize to, we don't want to be seen as a security. We don't want to in the US to be seen as like it should be part of like the security act and so on. So we sort of like fucked up the idea of a DAO in that sense. But I think now that we're going back to, okay, this is actually not that bad and we can make it work, it might start to make sense that saying that this token is a representation of what this game studio or this community of builders are doing, and you will get the reward in its shape of, we'll buy back the token and burn the supply so that this turns into accruing the value, and we'll use a treasury part of the revenue to like fund new games and new developers coming. And we go back to the origins of a DAO, which is a community that wanted to do more. They didn't need to trust each other. They could just trust the system, because the system allowed that to be used and to reward the commitment and stuff that people were doing. And I think that might be the way to go, but we still need to like fight all this bad blood that we have in this industry, and the bad view that we have from the outside. And that's why I said this since the beginning, and I'll keep on saying, that's why we need to optimize to build our products and to go after Web2 users, and not to do the fucking annoying, like bringing the next billion users to Web3. This is absurd. That will never happen. What we need to do, or what we should do, is to bring this beautiful technology and stuff that is not possible it was not possible before, to them. They don't care, like, and I keep on telling this a billion times to people, like, no one, like, ask any of your, like, find someone on the street or any of your friends, ask them if they know how an email works, how a website works, anything basic for you that is like the most basic shit for you, and ask them if they know how it works, and they will like, fuck off, you geek. Like, stop it. I don't care. And that is something that we should all learn. Like, they don't care. They want to use a product. They want to use something, and they don't care about decentralization. They don't care about anything. They give their information for free to every single big corporate. They give all their information to ChatGPT, and they're totally fine with it. So we need to start optimizing to, okay, they don't care about this part, but I can do stuff that was not possible to do before, and I'm going to package it in the way that it makes it interesting for them. And that's it. You make product for clients and users, and in crypto, Another unpopular opinion, this is for me like a circle jerk. Everyone's jerking each other off, pretending that this is so cool, and it is cool for us. But we are a tiny minority of the people, and we want users because we want this technology to be used in the real world. And that means that we need to optimize to onboard those people, and not onboard those people, to get this technology to those people in the ways and in the venues that they understand. Then we can, once they're in, we can start giving them like, like you want to know more? Perfect. You don't want to know more? Totally fine as well. So that's why like you should always have like this idea of normal user and power user, because the power user will want to know more, will want to use more, and you'll give them more features, and they probably are going to be the ones that will make your business grow the most, but you need that baseline to pay the fucking bills. And that is something that I think people forget about it. And my rant is over.
It was absolutely a pleasure, bro. The presentation, the whole thing is a pleasure to meet you today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and advice from my end is basically to look at economy, let's say RuneScape or collectibles of Pokemon. They're like hugely attractive. We did everything right. Let's say RuneScape even hired like bank people, like economists, to build in-game deflation mechanisms embedded in the Grand Exchange. And Pokemon IP, I don't want even to get into this talk. I mean, if we would go on chain, we would outperform every blockchain-intensive revenue by secondary market itself. It's very huge. I mean, don't look into like X Infinity and Sandbox. We are doing like mediocre, let's say, not great. But you can imagine and create your own vision by looking at better examples. Yeah, so I wouldn't like double down on like existing Web3 games, because like majority of them doesn't work in the way that we should, even if the vision is great. So instead, focus on providing value and fun for real gamers, and that's it. Like look up to the recent titles, keep up with trends, and build what people love. That's the best advice to give.
Couldn't agree more. Games are to be fun. Everything else comes after. And applications are meant to be useful. Everything else comes after, and that's it. And if you reverse the sequence, which we've done a lot in Web3, you get nothing because it doesn't work. But
yeah. Like we have these recent titles. We'll get tens of thousands of whitelists, basically just by going through the community or the socials, attracting a real audience who are like passionate about the game, the core game loop, and how fun it is. And launching only afterwards, we have a huge community, which is tied with the fun and not the financial gain that's in Web3.
Cool. I think we went way overboard on the length of this. If anyone has more questions, if not, I'll let you go from my class, which was not a class, it was just a single rant.
Anyone else asking more question? Okay. If not, then thank you a lot there for your time and dedication. I know that you're crazy. There's a schedule last week, but that's why we need to switch things a bit. I hope everything goes on very well in DevCon and Argentina. But again, thank you a lot for joining and for preparing the slide deck. For the contact of the instructor for today, that will be available via Ghostwire, so you can go his Telegram, LinkedIn, Twitter. So if you plan to ask him any follow-up questions, feel free to do so by some of the service know that we are talking to. That will be first one. Second one, the class on Thursday will be about the tokenomic. That will be leaded by Hugo, so a friend of mine. He working in a consulting firm, working with the tokenomic for a lot of big L1 in the market. So I hope that you guys are going to enjoy the classes on that topic as well. That would be everything I would like to mention for today. The slide deck, the recording would be updated tomorrow or maybe the day after tomorrow via the courseware as well. So everything you needed in the courseware in general. Thank you very much, everyone, including the founder and also the instructor. Thank you a lot for your call. And have a nice working day or having the nice rest of the day. Bye bye, guys.
Thank you, you guys, for your
Thank you, guys. It was a
presentation.
pleasure.
Thank you, Zay. Really insightful presentation. See you guys.